White House after Putin says he will move nuclear weapons, there is no reason to change strategic stance. Ukraine live updates. Show Subtitle Hide Caption Ukrainian Steel Industry Sick After War Year. Ukrainian steel industry sick after war year. AP. The White House said on Monday that Russian President Vladimir Putin's recent nuclear record attacks did not prompt the United States to change its strategic stance. Putin on Saturday announced plans to deploy tactical nuclear weapons in Belarus, an ally that shares borders with Russia, Ukraine, and 3 NATO countries. White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre said the U.S. saw no sign of the Kremlin's intention to use nuclear weapons. However, we do not see any reason at this time to change or adjust our stance. Putin's rationale for carrying nuclear weapons was denied by U.S. National Security Council spokesman John Kirby, who said that Britain plans to supply Ukraine with shells containing depleted uranium, and that armor-piercing munitions are not a nuclear threat but are common on the battlefield. Russia also uses it. European Union Foreign Policy Chief Josep Borrell tweeted that Putin's decision was irresponsible escalation and a threat to European security, a position echoed by NATO spokesperson Oana Lungescu. "We don't care," Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov said. "Such a reaction, of course, cannot change Russia's plans." The president explained everything in his statements. War crimes. U.S. officials pledged to hold Russia accountable for war crimes in Ukraine. Congress wants receipts. Improvements. Foreign Minister Antony Blinken chaired a virtual panel session on just and lasting peace in Ukraine with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy on Tuesday. Prosecutors in Poland said a foreign national suspected of spying on behalf of Russia will be held for 3 months for investigation. Prosecutors said the suspect, who has been in Poland since January, has gathered information on important infrastructure and security procedures. And cash splash and cash. Putin promises to carry nuclear weapons. Kremlin urges Russians to join the war in Ukraine. Updates. French President Emmanuel Macron plans to discuss a resolution on the Russian invasion of Ukraine when he meets with Chinese leader Xi Jinping during a trip to Beijing and Guangzhou next month. The Élysée said in an English-language statement on Monday that the 2 leaders would hold extensive discussions about the war, which is now in its 2nd year. The presidents of France and China will hold comprehensive talks on the war in Ukraine to restore peace and compliance with international law, in particular Ukraine's territorial integrity sovereignty, the statement said. Xi has sought position himself as a peace broker in the conflict and traveled to Moscow last week meet with Russian President Vladimir Putin. Élysée announced that Macron will visit China on April 5 to 8. The Zaporizhzhia Nuclear Power Plant lost many of its power transmission cables during war, and the UN's atomic energy chief warned that dangerous situation at Europe's largest nuclear power plant was not getting any better. Rafael Grossi, Director General of International Atomic Energy Agency, who visited the plant with Zelenskyy, said plant had switched emergency diesel generators multiple times power its key cooling systems avoid a meltdown. Grossi said situation at factory remains tense, due to heavy military presence in surrounding area and recent power outage that hit plant. But he said his 7th visit to Ukraine underlined his commitment to providing support for as long as it takes. According to the newspaper's report, Tehran in return sold Kremlin UAVs use in the war against Ukraine and agreed send missiles and ammunition Moscow. The UK Ministry of Defence said in an update that Russia has resumed drone strikes against Ukrainian civilians and infrastructure, launching more than 70 Iranian-made Shahed aircraft in March. This came after a 2-week pause in February, possibly caused by a shortage of supplies. In addition to technological assistance, the journal said Iran wanted Russian helicopters and warplanes. A senior official Kyiv on Monday objected to a section of UN's human rights report in Ukraine, which says searches at buildings belonging to the Ukrainian Orthodox Church Moscow Patriarchate can be discriminatory. The report, released last week by the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, raises concerns about Russian wings that killed Ukrainian civilians and severely damaged infrastructure. It also opposes harsh treatment of Ukrainians in Russian-controlled territory. However, it still includes concerns about treatment of Russian sympathizers in areas still under Ukrainian control and the government's treatment of church with strong Russian ties. The church faced backlash for the discovery of Russian passports and anti-Ukrainian propaganda during nationwide raids on its religious sites. The report stressed the need to ensure that everyone charged with a crime enjoys the full spectrum of enforceable fair trial rights. In a Facebook post, Ukraine's Foreign Ministry spokesperson, Oana Lungescu, urged the UN agency to avoid unstable political assessments and to base its reports on facts. Ukraine is a democratic state where freedom of religion is guaranteed, Lungescu said. At the same time, freedom does not mean the right to engage in activities that undermine national security. Lawmakers on Capitol Hill are launching full-court pressure to hold Russia accountable for the war crimes it is accused of committing in Ukraine. A pair of House Senate committees will hold hearings in mid-April to draw attention to atrocities such as the civilian S in Bucha and Mariupol that U.S. officials have helped the Ukrainian government prosecute. Michael McCall, chairman of House Foreign Relations Committee, plans to bring the Republican Texas, Ukrainian Attorney General and war crimes victims before board on April 19. Anyone in United States can relate to the situation. A ruthless, violent just broke into your house and is killing your children and raping people for no reason just because they think they can do it, said Ukrainian ambassador. Oksana Markarova from the USA told USA Today. The UN High Commissioner for Human Rights announced that 22,424 civilians have lost their lives, including 8,401, 23 injured, since the start of the war in Ukraine. The agency believes that the actual numbers are significantly higher, because counts in many areas have been delayed or are awaiting confirmation. Chief among these areas are Donetsk and Luhansk provinces of Donbass, where Russians occupied most of region. The last month has been the most brutal.